Notes of Sri Aurobindo from the collective works of Sri Aurobindo, volume 28, Letters on Yoga, part 1, page 48, topic the Sankhya Yoga system, subtopic transformation of Rajas and Tamas, continuation from yesterday. Sri Aurobindo says it is possible that the fatigue or lethargy comes as the wrong condition which has to be replaced by the peace. As Rajas, kinetic passion has to be replaced by tapas, the spiritual force, so tamas, the obscure inertia has to be replaced by sama, the luminous quietude and peace. Sri Aurobindo says the peace, sama, is the pure form, tamas is its degraded or perverted form, just as rajas is the degraded or perverse form of tapas. When there is the transformation, tamas can be got rid of, but till then there is always a possibility of its mixing with the peace or stillness, so long as that is not perfect and all-pervading. A dynamic descent brings tapas, not sama. It is a greater and greater descent of peace that brings sama. The dynamic descent helps it by dispersing the element of rajic disturbance and changing rajas into tapas. Next subtopic, transformation of tamas into sama. Sri Aurobindo says the tamas is part of the general physical nature, and so long as that is not fully changed and illumined, something of it remains, but one has only to go on, opening oneself to the mother's consciousness, and in time the tamas too will change into the inner divine rest and peace. Sri Aurobindo continues to say all undesirable things are a mistranslation in the ignorance of something that on a higher plane is or might be desirable. Inertia, tamas, is the mistranslation of the divine sama, rest, quietude, peace. Pain is a mistranslation of ananda, lust of love, etc. It is only when the lower perversions are got rid of that the higher things in their truth can reign. It is the tendency of the physical, says Sri Aurobindo, it is the tendency of the physical to substitute its own inertia for the emptiness. The true emptiness is the beginning of what I call in the Arya sama, the rest, calm, peace of the eternal self, which has finally to replace tamas, the physical inertia. Tamas is the degradation of sama, as rajas is the degradation of tapas, the divine force. The physical consciousness is always trying to substitute its own inertia for the calm, peace or rest of the true consciousness, just as the vital is always trying to substitute in rajas for the true action of the force. Sri Aurobindo continues to say, sleepness, is the physical tamas, trying to push itself into the place of the calm. Part of the transformation consists in replacing the element of tamas in the nature of sama, or true, calm, peace, rest, of which tamas or inertia is the degradation or perversion in the lower nature. For each of the three gunas has its divine counterpart in the higher nature. But tamas, being the settled habit of the inferior nature, tries to persist and keep or get back its place. That is the reason why this kind of alternation takes place between the two. Sri Aurobindo continues to say, inert sama is sama, still mixed with tamas, a quietude that has no force of action, tapas in it, no positive principle of happy ease, no positive light of knowledge, but is still calm, repose, released from all disturbance. Tamas has to be transformed into sama, the peace and rest of the higher prakriti, and then filled with tapas and jyoti. But this can only be done completely in the physical when the physical is finally transformed by the supramental power. Next subtopic, Mahat. Sri Aurobindo says, Mahat is, I suppose, the essential and original matrix of consciousness, that is, involved, not evolved in Prakriti, out of which individuality and formation come. Next subtopic, Tanmatra. Sri Aurobindo says Tanmatra is the only basis of matter. In the Sankhya, the basis is Pradhana of Prakriti, out of which come Buddhi and everything else. In the Vedanta, it is the spiritual substance out of which all comes. Now, section 3, topic, the Jivatman and the psychic being. That's the first chapter. And the subtopic under that, under the Jivatman in the integral yoga, the first subtopic is the Jivatman or the individual self. These are the very important terms that we have to understand while we travel in the journey towards Samagra Yoga. So let's move on. Sri Aurobindo says by Jivatman, we mean the individual self. By Jivatman, says Sri Aurobindo, we mean the individual self. Essentially, it is oneself with all others, but in the multiplicity of the divine, it is the individual self, an individual center of the universe, and it sees everything in itself, or itself in everything, or both together, according to its state of consciousness and point of view. Sri Aurobindo says the self, Atman, is in its nature either transcendent or universal. Paramatma, Atma. Sri Aurobindo says the self, Atman, is in its nature either transcendent or universal. Paramatma, Atma. When it individualizes, becomes a central being, it is then called the Jivatman. Jivatman feels his oneness with the universal, but at the same time, his central separateness as a portion of the divine.
Les plus grandes victoires sont celles qui font le moins de bruit. La manifestation d'un monde nouveau ne s'annonce pas à coups de tambour. The greatest victories are the least noisy. The manifestation of a new world is not proclaimed by beat of drum.
Sri Aurobindo continues to say, the individual self is usually described as a portion of the transcendent and cosmic self. In the higher and subtler ranges of the consciousness, it knows itself as that. But in the lower, where the consciousness is more and more clouded, it identifies itself with surface forms of personality, creations of Prakriti, and becomes unaware of its divine origin. Self, when one becomes aware of it, is felt as something self-existent and eternal, which is not identified with forms of mental, vital and physical personality. These are only small expressions of its potentialities in nature. What people call themselves now is only the ego or the mind or the life force or the body, but that is because they think in terms of the formations of the Prakriti and do not see behind them. Sri Aurobindo says, for most part of the Supreme acts through the Jiva and its nature, and the Jiva and the nature act through the ego, and the ego acts through the outer instruments, that is the play of ignorance. Essentially, one Jiva has the same nature as all, but in manifestation, each puts forth its own line of Swabhava. The Jivatman is above all planes. It has no fixed form or color, though it may represent itself in a form. The Jivatman has always calm and peace. It is the nature, that is Prakriti, that is not quiet. Next subtopic, the Jivatman, the psychic being and the Prakriti. We will read this tomorrow. So these are the wonderful words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo.